Welcome to Chapter 6, Criminal Defenses, Justifications, and Excuses. This presentation has a great deal of information in it, so I'm going to ask you to devote some serious time and concentration to this presentation, okay? What I'm going to do at this moment is just kind of hit the highlights. So we're going to start out talking about the presumption of innocence. It's important to know that criminal defendants don't have to do or say anything. They have the presumption of innocence. They're presumed innocent unless and until the state, that's the prosecution, proves that person guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of every element of every crime charged. Okay? So let's be really clear on that first. Having said that, they don't have to do anything, they don't have to say anything, but they usually do. Okay? And what they often will do, they being criminal defendants, is put on defenses, affirmative defenses. So we're going to talk about affirmative defenses in this chapter. We're going to talk about justifications and excuses, two different types of defenses. Justifications are defenses that say, I committed the crime, but I did it for a greater good. A classic example is self-defense. Yes, I harmed this person, but I did so because the person was trying to kill me. Okay? Justification. An excuse. That's where a person says, I committed the crime, but I should not be held responsible for committing the crime. The classic excuse defense is an insanity defense. I committed the crime, but I can't control myself, or I don't know right from wrong. Okay? And so therefore I shouldn't be punished for it. That's an excuse. We will talk about or explore insanity defenses in this chapter. It's a deep topic, and so we're going to devote some time and energy to exploring insanity defenses in this chapter. We will explore age as an excuse. Okay, remember, I'm not using excuse in the kind of layman's sense. I'm using excuse in the legal sense that I just described, which says, I committed the offense, but for some reason, I should not be held responsible. And so age can be one of those reasons. If a small child steals something off of a table, let's say, for example, we might say the child didn't know any better, all right? And so it's that type of a thing. We'll talk about self-defense, as I've indicated, or I touched on briefly, and defense of others. Also defense of the home as justification defenses. Castle doctrine laws that you may have heard about in the news. And there are several going around now that you hear about quite a bit. Make my day laws, castle doctrine, and stand your ground laws being three of the most popular. So we'll talk about those. We'll explore legal tests for the police use of deadly force. All right, in the main case that talks about that, Tennessee versus Garner. We'll go over the necessity defense, and I strongly encourage you, by the way, this presentation has a high number of excellent videos that are well worth your time. They're going to take some of your time, but they're well worth your time to watch. And one of them is a video going over kind of philosophical notions of the necessity defense, and in particular the case of the Crown versus Dudley and Stevens. Please watch it. It's definitely well worth your time. We'll go over duress, when someone is essentially forced into committing a crime. Consent as a defense, when it works and when it doesn't, because sometimes it can work and sometimes it won't. That's covered in this presentation. We'll go over mistake of law and mistake of fact. We will go over, and by the way, with regard to self-defense and stand your ground and all of that, there are also some compelling videos in here with Marion Hammer and Masad Ayub and others, and I encourage you to watch those too. We will go over resisting unlawful arrest laws, the American standard and the European standard, okay? And we'll go over some defenses that basically go on the offense, that say the government did something wrong. Entrapment, where the defendant says the government entrapped the defendant into committing an offense. Or the use of informants, where sometimes defendants will complain about government use of informants, and we'll go over why the government uses informants. And finally, continuing with what I just talked about, casting the defendant as kind of the victim, we go over some what we characterized as new defenses. That's at the very end of this presentation. And that goes over some defenses where the defendant is, again, cast as a victim. For whatever reason, they kind of fall generally under the category of excuses. The defendant committed this offense but should not be held responsible for a variety of reasons. It can be drug addiction or some type of mental issue, for example. So, as I said at the outset of this little video, this is a rather dense presentation, so I encourage you to get ready to put some serious time into it. But I do think that you'll be well rewarded because this is a rich topic and we really have some great resources in this presentation. So I hope you enjoy it.